Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, it's your boy, Shiny Hunter Dom, back for the first time with an analysis video of Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the movie. The trailer dropped earlier this morning, and what I wanted to do was kind of take a shot by shot look at the trailer itself, suss out any details we can reasonably take out of the trailer, and kind of just get my thoughts together about this movie. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it. I want the hype to be there. I feel like it's building up. The first trailer dropped a couple of months ago and people were pretty excited, but there was sort of this strange feeling of disgust, I guess you'd say, with some of the Pokemon and the way they looked. This movie's going for an ultra realistic look at Pokemon, and that's not something we've ever seen before. And so I feel it's going to be either a hit or a miss. It's going to hit hard, or people are going to kind of get weirded out by it. I think the uncanny valley is there. So we're going to start looking at some of these scenes one by one. I'm going to try to focus on the stuff we haven't seen before as opposed to things we might have saw in the old trailer. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first one. In the beginning of the trailer, Pikachu is basically explaining to the main character how he had got to where he was and how he met him at his father's office. He has amnesia. He doesn't remember who he is. He has this hat on his head, and it has his father's name in it and the address, and that's basically how he gets to the office. Okay, in this shot, basically this is the hat. One thing I noticed was it says if lost, return to Harry Goodman. That's kind of a small hat. Obviously, it's kind of a small hat. It's a Pikachu-sized hat, but it's not really a human-sized hat, I would say. So the fact that it would belong to Harry Goodman seems a little weird. Obviously, his address is 1722 Green Street, Rhyme City, and then a zip code that's kind of unintelligible. The only thing in here I can see is that Green Street. I think it's probably a little Easter egg regarding Pokemon Green, which was one of the versions that was originally released in Japan. Here in America, of course, we had Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. But there was, of course, Green, and later on in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, Green was a female character that they actually brought back. So on to the next thing. We have this W Hat Cafe, or We Hat Cafe. This cafe is actually seen in the poster for the movie. Not exactly how this like alleyway is shown, but it's in the poster itself, and I'm assuming that this is Green Street. I'm getting the feeling that either the character lives above the cafe or around the cafe, because the cafe seems to have a lot of presence in these trailers. They keep coming back to this cafe, and of course this is like a location shot where they're kind of showing off this alleyway. Interesting thing, there seems to be a unknown sign there in the back, and one of the things I notice about these trailers is that they mix English letters, and they also mix this it's not Japanese, but it's this this Pokemon language that seems to pop up in Pokemon games themselves. In the beginning they used Japanese lettering, and then they changed to this made up language made specifically for Pokemon games. And these letters are everywhere in this trailer. but I noticed that this world sort of uses both a combination of English and this language that I'm not sure if they really have a name for it, but it's just basically a Pokemon language. So this next scene, we're taking a look at the interior of this apartment or office. I'm not sure if it's, I think it's a apartment where his father lived. And we're taking a look at them talking. This is sort of a different part of the same scene we saw from the first trailer. But once again, Pikachu is sort of explaining where he came from and how he had gotten there. They sort of introduce this idea that Pikachu is addicted to coffee. He really loves coffee. They show it several times in this trailer. There's a lot of coffee cups around him. And the main character even mentions, like, you drink a lot of coffee. And there's a whole humorous scene where they kind of go back and forth about it. So this next this next character, Ludicolo, he's terrifying. He's literally terrifying. A lot of people are. This is the issue people are having with these Pokemon and this super realistic look that they're getting. It's uncanny valley, and I think a lot of people's expectations of what they thought Pokemon were going to look like just didn't match up. This is the cartoon version of Ludicolo, and as you can see, they're very similar. They have the duck bills, they have the strange leaf hat, but where it gets really weird is this fur that's coming off of Ludicolo. I think when we look at the cartoon, we don't really see that. We don't think of it as fur. It kind of almost looks like he's wearing a poncho or something. But then when you go for this super realistic look, it just becomes like a little terrifying. And I think that's okay. I think some of them should look strange. They're monsters after all. So not every one of them is going to be this cute and cuddly little creature. I think a lot of them are frightening. Like, some of them should be frightening. That's kind of their MO, like Gengar, Ghost Pokemon, and some of them are supposed to be kind of scary. So I think that's going to be the hit or miss for this movie. If we can get past this whole it's really freaky looking aspect, I think we'll be okay. So in this next shot, we get this this helicopter shot, basically, of a compound of some sort. What this tells me is that it's in the mountains somewhere. So obviously, this isn't a place people want to let others know is there. I think this place is hidden out somewhere, and assuming that this is going to be a antagonist like compound. This is where some bad stuff is happening. This is where some, if you later on in the trailer, where some weird scientific stuff is happening. So that's just a shot of that, and it kind of gives you this idea that there are bad guys in this movie. We really haven't seen any titular antagonists yet. There's no big baddie who's just waltzing around the screen, eating up the scenery. So until we get a good look at who that is, for now we know there's some kind of organization, some kind of maybe even a team. I don't know. Like in the games, we have a lot of teams that go around doing bad stuff. So I guess we'll see eventually. Now this is the first look at a bad guy, and this character actually looked on IMDb, and this character's name is Sebastian. Now I kind of did a search on characters in the Pokemon franchise named Sebastian, and the only one I could really come up with was one character who worked for Team Rocket. He was a top scientist, And this guy just doesn't say scientist to me. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the Charizard tattoo on his chest. He doesn't really scream higher learning. So I don't think this character really has anything to do with that character. I don't think there's any real connection between those two. I think it's just an occurrence that happened, that this character happened to be named Sebastian. Charizard, he's looking pretty dope. It looks really good. The scaling, it kind of looks like he's got scars across his cheek. I don't think that's normal, as it were. I think that's some kind of battle scar or something like that. But this guy is down with Charizard, and he's got the very cartoony looking Charizard tattoo on his chest and on his neck. So he's he's a fanboy. He's a gen runner. Now we're taking a look at this shot of the main character Tim as he's walking across towards the RCPD, the Rhyme City Police Department, which is, funny enough, the same initials as Raccoon City Police Department. What we see here is police in the Pokemon series tend to have Growliths and Arcanines, and they kind of kept with that tradition. We have one guy coming in with a Charmander. He's walking in, and then it looks like some kind of detective or something in the back with he's kind of walking out with a Squirtle. So I don't know if people's occupations sort of dictate what kind of Pokemon they get in this world. You kind of see that a little bit in the Pokemon anime series, but it's pretty interesting how that just seems to be the basic Pokemon for some people's occupations. Also, Golurk there's two of them in this shot. They are basically kind of these servant-like Pokemon, I guess. It's a Generation 5 Pokemon. So I'm not the most familiar with it, but he's some kind of golem-like Pokemon. And in the real world, golems were this like servant-like, automatonous, like strange creature. It's from real world lore, but that's kind of what they are. They're just kind of these automatons that kind of follow directions, and that kind of makes sense. They would make good sentry guards, or something of that nature. So that kind of makes sense. They would be like hanging around a police station. You can kind of see some other Pokemon in the background. Maybe that's an Arduino, and like the far back, you can see the Arcanine, Squirtle. Nothing we haven't really seen before except for the Golurk. Well, these next two these are just some close-ups. I kind of really like these close-ups. They look really good. Pokemon tend to look really good in this trailer the closer you get to them. Of course, we got Snubbull and a Bulbasaur. We see plenty of Bulbasaurs in the last trailer, and we'll see probably many more before the movie's over. Here's another scene of them. It seems like they're going off on a migration of some kind, which is interesting. The main character seems to be following them. Another thing I noticed is that there's Molo here following Tim and Pikachu. And Pikachu, it looks like Pikachu's hurt, and that's why he's being carried. But other than that, it's kind of hard to tell. It must be later on in the movie. I'm assuming after some sort of confrontation with the bad guys, and Pikachu gets hurt. This character, we don't have a name for her yet. I checked IMDb. There's nothing there for her. We've seen her several times in these trailers, or in the first trailer and in this trailer. We know she's the owner of the Psyduck, and it seems that she's on a mission of some kind. Maybe she's some kind of agent. We're not really sure. These pods in the background, we'll see these again a couple of times, and these are interesting. And these are going to go closer into my kind of theories later on, what these pods are all about. But we'll see them again. And obviously, she's taking video, so she's gaining evidence of some kind, I'm guessing. So I think she's some kind of agent, some kind of police officer, or something like this. Here's a close up of the pods again, and you can tell this is the Greninjas from the trailer that came out earlier. So these Greninjas are being kept in these pods. For what reason? We're not really sure at this point. So this is a shot of the underground Pokemon Club, I guess. It's not really certain if this is like an illegal fighting ring or not, but it seems kind of undergroundy. We got Loudreds here, and with the DJs, obviously. And that kind of makes sense because they amplify sound, so the fact that the DJs would use them as amplifiers, that's kind of cool. In the back you see critical hit, and that makes a little more sense in the next clip here. In this clip we see a Blastoise taking on several Gengar, and originally that's what I thought he was getting, tag team by Gengar, but then I looked up in the back with the Loudred and the DJs again, and we see the sign again. This time it says Double Team. As we know, Double Team is a Pokemon move, and it's used by Gengar. A lot of times we see this used, especially in the anime, it's used to raise evasiveness, but it's always seems to be used in Pokemon, either anime, and especially in this movie now, where it creates multiple copies of itself. This is kind of like a little cool, and then the Blastoise in the middle is spinning on its shell and kind of doing water cannon blasts at the Gengars as they close in on them. So this is a pretty cool scene. Nothing too lore heavy, but I thought it was pretty cool that they're kind of showing off the moves that the Pokemon are doing in the fight. Here's the first time, okay, so I noticed in the first trailer something very specific. We didn't see any Pokeballs at all. And this is the first time we see a Pokemon interact with a Pokeball. It's very quick. This was the only real screenshot I could get. But it was a Cubone popping back out of a Pokeball. Now, from my understanding, Rhyme City is supposed to be some city that celebrates Pokemon and humans living together in harmony. And you don't really see any Pokemon in Pokeballs. But this is the first time we see a Cubone kind of pop out of Pokeball. So I'm not sure if this is Tim trying to trying to catch a Pokemon, trying to someone else is catching a Cubone and it jumps out. I'm assuming that it popped out and the catch wasn't successful. That's what I'm kind of guessing from this quick little shot of Cubone jumping out. But yeah, this is the first time we really see any Pokemon in this movie interact with Pokeballs, or it even being referenced. Another shot of these Greninja. There's obviously a chase scene with Greninja. This was heavily shown off in the first trailer, and of course this trailer now. One thing I noticed, and I'll note it a couple of different times in this video, is their eyes. Their eyes tend to be glowing, and a couple other Pokemon tend to be glowing, and I'll get into that later. But this is very interesting. Now, this is another one of these pods that keep popping up. Now, the way this little scene goes is someone's standing in front of the pod explodes, and that character's thrown back. I can't really tell what character that is that's getting thrown back. Seem to be wearing mostly white. I don't think it's the main character, at least looking at his hands are black, and I don't think that's the female lead. So this is some other character. But as we see later, as you can see inside the pod, there was a somewhat purplish figure inside. And I think you know, if you've already seen the trailer, who that is and what this is. It's interesting, not many people caught it while it was happening, but it kind of makes sense with the lore. This is an interesting scene. We see a Flareon. Now, I don't know if this Flareon was popping out of a ball. I don't know if this is an evolution scene, which it very well might be. But once again, these blue eyes keep popping up. Some Pokemon have them, some don't. And I'm assuming what we would say, what we call evil Pokemon or the bad guys Pokemon, they all tend to have this little blue eye thing going on. As far as I know, that hasn't been a thing in any other Pokemon lore games or movies. But in this movie, it seems to be a recurring theme. Also, in this clip, there are 3 Pokemon in the back, 3 statues. These 3 are Arceus, Palkia, and Dialga, and these are the 3 creation Pokemon. Now, there's also Giratina, but he's not shown as a statue in this. And actually, the lore goes that Arceus is the god of Pokemon, or the god Pokemon. And he created Dialga and Palkia and Giratina, but Giratina was banished because of his, violent nature, right? And Palkia and Dialga were put in charge of time and space, basically. So this goes heavy into the Pokemon lore, but it's interesting that they would bring it up because now these characters know of these legendary Pokemon. If they understand their place in the world. Is Arceus a real Pokemon? Like, is it really God? Is Palkia and Dialga? That creates like an interesting place in this world where there are these massive Pokemons somewhere that just have immense power. That's kind of creative. Or if in this world these are just myths, right? They're just legends. They're not really to the wide world known to be real, In this next shot, this is the first time we actually see Pikachu doing anything electrical. Earlier in the trailer, he's not really using any of his power, and later in the trailer we kind of realize that he can't or doesn't have the ability to yet do it. But this is the first time we actually see Pikachu generate electricity. And this is the first time we see him doing an attack, and it's probably a Thunderbolt attack. Of course, that's Pikachu's thing. He's an electric Pokemon. And this is probably towards the end where the climax is happening. There's probably some big fight going on. Apom, this is terrifying. This is more of that uncanny valley that's going on. Obviously, it looks crazy. The eyes once again are glowing, and it's an angry, bad Pokemon that seems to be one of the antagonists. So this is kind of falling into a theory I had that'll go on later, but it's just another Pokemon. It looks the CGI looks good. Like the body of the Pokemon, it just looks uncanny. It looks a little weird, especially the hand tail that the Apom have. It just looks weird. So now we're back in this underground fighting club, and notice a few things. Pikachu's obviously going up to battle. It looks like there's a Pancham in the back. We have the Loudreds off to the side, so that would be where the DJ was at. On to the next one, we bring up this Sebastian character once again. We have off to the side a Squirtle and it looks like a Victini. Down there, very small Pokemon. Off to the left of Squirtle. Another thing I noticed is this is one of those worlds in a movie that have really weird clothing designs. So we have some people who are just normal. They just dress like a normal person. And then we have this lady off to the right who's just wearing clear plastic for some reason. And another lady off to the left by the Squirtle who's wearing like a pink fur coat with like lime green and hot pink dress. Like, this is a really strange world. And of course we have Sebastian and Charizard in the middle. This next one, the reason I put this one in here is I really, for the life of me, don't know what Pokemon is that is over on the left side. Through the fence, right below the Pikachu versus Charizard sign. I can't, for the life of me, figure out what Pokemon that is. It looks... I don't know what it looks like. Like, I'm trying to think of what Pokemon that is. And it's just not coming to me. Also, off to the right, the top right, it looks like Spearow is up there on a little bird ledge. This next one's more Apom, and I don't know if they're being electrocuted or if they're doing something to this electrical box. It looks like some kind of AC unit or some kind of electrical unit, but it's just a bunch of them. Once again, they got the glowing eyes, which seems to be a theme for evil Pokemon in this movie. And either they're getting electrocuted or they're doing something to this thing that's causing an explosion of some kind. And then this is the first clip we see of these two characters together. Once again, we don't know her name, and we have Tim, the main protagonist, but we don't know their relationship together. I'm assuming that they're going to meet under the circumstances of both investigating whatever's happening in the movie. And then this whole part where it looks like the Earth is rising up. There's some kind of explosion, something. It doesn't really look like the location that we saw earlier with the compound. It looks more foresty. I'm not really sure what's going on here. We know from the first trailer that Psyduck has psychic abilities and that it can create like large shock waves and psychic waves, but I don't think this is Psyduck's doing, obviously. Some other character is creating this or doing this. Obviously a Pokemon probably, but I'm not sure what we're looking at. And then the titular moment, the reveal of Mewtwo. He looks good. The design is off. And I think this moment, a lot of people overlooked the look of Mewtwo because it was Mewtwo, right? I think a lot of people saw it and they just lost their minds knowing it was Mewtwo. And then coming back and kind of just staring at him for a little bit, it's a little weird, but I feel like he's good enough to be in the movie. People want him. This is what we wanted, you know. It's just a little strange. It's one of those uncanny valley moments again of we're looking at Pokemon in a realistic fashion, and sometimes it goes a little off, you know. This next scene, right before the end, they're talking in looks like some kind of apartment or something. But the interesting part is there's these evolution stones sitting there. This is the first time we've seen them in trailers, so not really sure which ones they are. I'm guessing Ice Stone for the first one to the left, and then looking at the stones from the game doesn't really help too much. I'm guessing the second one in the middle is a moonstone. It looks jagged and broken off. That's the kind of look it gives me, is the moonstone. Third stone, I'm not quite sure what that is. If you have any idea what you think that stone is, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't look like anything. I don't think it's a thunderstone. I don't think Pikachu would be standing that close to a thunderstone if it knew it would evolve from it. It just seems to be this stone that either it's like a holding item, or it's just another evolution stone. Not really quite sure. But if you have any thoughts, go ahead and link them in the comments below. And this is Volt Tackle. We're assuming this is one of Pikachu's big moments where he actually starts doing some battling. Whether this is later on in the movie, or what was inferred from the fight with Charizard, that he fought Charizard before. Maybe Pikachu just can't pull it out of him until a moment happens that he finally does his big attack. But I'm guessing Volt Tackle. We'll see. And so those were the new moments out of the new Detective Pikachu trailer. I have some thoughts, and I'm gonna go ahead and give my ideas of what I think the movie is about. If you really don't want, it's not really a spoiler, but I have some theories of what the movie is about. If you don't want to hear that, if you don't want to be, predisposed to someone else's thoughts or ideas, go ahead and leave the video now, and you can go on your merry way. I think I've seen through the plot. Unfortunately, I think I've seen everything I need to see to kind of piece it together. And like I said before, if you don't want to hear anything like this that may or may not be a spoiler, even though I don't know, I've never played the original Detective Pikachu game, for example. I don't know really anything else about this franchise. Pokemon, yes, but the Detective Pikachu franchise specifically, I don't know how well it follows the 3DS game that came out. Like I said, I had no want to play it. I heard it wasn't very good. As big of a Pokemon fan as I am, it was just something I wasn't interested in at the time. But from what I can tell, last chance by the way, you can click off the video. What I could tell, I think that Pikachu is Tim's father. There's some things that kind of connect to this theory. First of all, Pikachu has a hat that directly belongs to Harry, Tim's father. Another thing that strikes me as odd is Pikachu is a world-renowned detective, but he can't remember who he is. And the father was Ken Watanabe in the original trailer was saying that, your father was a great detective, or a great, he didn't really say officer or detective, he just said he was a legend in the precinct. So I'm guessing that whatever happened, and I'm thinking that they're bringing in Mewtwo, so that means there's some kind of genetic experimentation going on. Whatever bad guys, we don't really have any bad guys to look at specifically, except for maybe Sebastian, the Charizard guy. We don't really have any bad guys to point fingers at. But I'm thinking, looking at the IMDb, an interesting note. Bill Nye's in this movie, but there's several characters or several actors who are credited on the IMDb that have not shown up, or their characters' names haven't shown up, and that interests me greatly. Bill Nye is really a credited actor. He's a British actor. He's been in quite a few movies, notably Pirates of the Caribbean as Davy Jones. He's been in Shaun of the Dead as Sean's stepfather. He was in Hot Fuzz. He's been in the Underworld series. So you would know him if you've seen him. And I feel like he does something really well, which is bad guys. He's British. He's got that bad guy just walk and talk about him. I'm guessing he's going to be the end bad guy, and he hasn't revealed himself in the trailer, obviously. And I think for reasons, we may or may not be talking about Team Rocket, especially if Mewtwo is involved, because we know Team Rocket was kind of the starting point for the whole Mewtwo mythos, where he came from. That's very much a Team Rocket oriented story. So if maybe he was a Giovanni, I wouldn't put too much into it. They may not go that route, but he could be a bad guy. I'm probably most definitely sure he's going to be the big bad. Or maybe he's, I don't know, maybe he's Tim's father, if that's not the direction they're going. I don't see them putting Ryan Reynolds physically in the movie. I would guess he would be the Pikachu version of the father. And then if and when the father is found, he's going to be another actor. So, but for some reason, I really think he's going to be the bad guy in this movie. And we don't know a lot of the other characters' names or their motives. The female, for example, we're not really sure her name. Either Suki Waterhouse or Catherine Newton. I believe Suki is the lead female. Of course, these don't really tell us much. We have Tim, obviously, Justice Goodman. He's playing Tim. Ken Watanabe, Japanese actor. He's been in a lot of great movies. He was in Kill Bill, for example. Detective Yoshida, which was his father, Tim's father in the movie, his partner. And we have a couple other characters, but they seem to be background characters, and other characters we just haven't been introduced to. Actually, we do have a father. Okay, I'm just going through IMDb now, and we have Paul Kitson as Harry Goodman, interestingly enough. He's been in Black Mirror, and not really sure what else. I don't see any big credits to his name, but he's only been in a couple of films. Black Mirror, he was in a show called Persona. I'm not sure if that's the Persona video game series, but he doesn't have a lot of credits, so couldn't really say how well of an actor he is. But that being said, those are just my feelings and theories on the whole movie. I think there's some kind of conspiracy going on, and I think the basis of the bad guys thing is taking people and kind of converting them into Pokemon or putting them into Pokemon, and I think that's what happened with Tim's father in this movie. Is that he was somehow turned into a Pikachu, or his mind was put into a Pikachu. It makes sense in a way. the whole being a great detective of Pikachu being a great detective. His father just happened to be a legend at the precinct. He could have been a detective. It's not specified, but that kind of makes sense. So that's where I think it's going. I'm pretty hyped to see this movie, even with all the uncanny valley stuff. I feel like if they could knock this out the park, if this is a hit, people can get over that and really enjoy themselves. I think this movie has the ability to make a lot of money. It's going to make money. It's Pokemon. But I mean, it could make a lot of money, and I'm sure we will see future Pokemon movies in the future. If this does well, we're almost 100% guaranteed. Just one note before I go, tomorrow will be the Gen 8 Pokemon trailer. It'll be dropping at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So I'm going to be getting up early, looking at that. Probably put out another video, another analysis video tomorrow, taking a look at the Gen 8 trailer. So before I go, if you'd like, leave a like, subscribe if you'd like, and also leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.